The Migrant Caravan issue is escalating in a rather dramatic fashion. We're now hearing that a third group of migrants are making their way to the U.S. and have recently passed through the southern Mexico border. According to the Mexican Interior Minister, this group is armed with guns and Molotov cocktails. When the group was trying to break through the southern border, police in Mexico fired rubber bullets on the group and one man was actually killed. There are three groups now. The second group was also reported to be throwing rocks. In response to this, Donald Trump is now reportedly sending more soldiers to the southern border, potentially up to 15,000. And he recently said that they will treat rocks like firearms, and this has sparked a massive outcry. So let's take a look at exactly what's going on, and we're going to start with the troops on the southern border. But before we get started, please head over to patreon.com/Timcast to help support my work. Patrons are the backbone of the content I create, so if you like these videos and want to see more, then please go to patreon.com/Timcast to help support my work. From NPR, Trump says he'll send as many as 15,000 troops to the southern border. Speaking to reporters as he left the White House for a campaign rally Wednesday night in Florida, Trump said the number of military personnel on the border will go up to anywhere between 10,000 and 15,000 military personnel on top of the Border Patrol, ICE, and everybody else at the border. The current number of troops deployed to the border is 5,239. The head of Northern Command, General Terrence O'Shaughnessy, said on Tuesday. He said that number would likely grow even larger. A contingent of 2,092 National Guard members is already stationed at the border. That total alone is roughly equal to the number of U.S. troops remaining in Iraq and Syria. This news comes following reports that a second migrant caravan has entered Mexico as main caravan resumes. There is a third caravan. We'll get to that in just a second. The Washington Post reports hundreds of Central Americans following in the footsteps of a 1,000-strong migrant caravan making its way toward the U.S. border crossed a river from Guatemala into Mexico on Monday, defying a heavy federal police presence deployed to patrol that country's southern frontier. A low-flying police helicopter hovered overhead as the migrants waded in large groups through the Suchiate River's murky waters, apparently trying to use the downdraft from its rotors to discourage them. Guatemala's Noti 7 channel reported that one man drowned and aired video of a man dragging a seemingly lifeless body from the river. Once on the Mexican side, the migrants were surrounded and escorted by dark uniformed officers as sirens wailed. The standoff at the riverbank followed a more violent confrontation that occurred on the bridge over the river Sunday night, when migrants threw rocks and used sticks against Mexico police. One migrant died from a head wound during the clash, but the cause was unclear. We're now seeing numerous reports that a third migrant caravan has departed, despite White House reportings. This from local news KTV7 in Oregon. The story was also picked up by several other local news outlets around the country, but it likely stems from Reuters reporting on the 28th U.S.-bound migrants enter Guatemala, others clash at border. A new group of migrants bound for the United States set off from El Salvador and crossed into Guatemala on Sunday, following thousands of other Central Americans fleeing poverty and violence who have taken similar journeys in recent weeks. The group of more than 300 Salvadorians left the capital, San Salvador, on Sunday. A larger group of mostly Hondurans, estimated to number between 3,500 and 7,000, who left their country in mid-October, are now in southern Mexico, has become a key issue in U.S. congressional elections. A third group broke through a gate at the Guatemalan border with Mexico in Tecún Uman on Sunday and clashed with police. Local first responders said the security forces used rubber bullets against the migrants and that one person, Honduran Henry Adalid, 26, was killed. 6 police officers were injured, said Beatriz Morquin, the director of health for the Retal-Hula region. Mexico's Interior Minister, Alfonso Navarrete, told reporters on Sunday evening that federal police did not have any weapons even to fire plastic bullets. He said that some of the migrants had guns, while others had Molotov cocktails, and this information had been passed on to other Central American governments. Guatemala's government said in a statement that it regrets that the migrants didn't take the opportunity of dialogue and instead threw stones and glass bottles at police. U.S. President Donald Trump and his fellow Republicans have sought to make immigration a major issue ahead of November 6 elections, in which the party is battling to keep control of Congress. Following this news, yesterday we saw a statement by Donald Trump, which USA Today says Trump suggests immigrants could be shot if they throw rocks at military. President Donald Trump said members of the U.S. military sent to the southern border to keep out thousands in a migrant caravan would fight back if immigrants throw stones, and suggested soldiers might open fire on the group because there's, quote, not much difference between a rock and a gun. In an address from the White House Thursday, just days before the midterm elections, Trump announced his administration was preparing to change the country's asylum practices and took on thousands of migrants fleeing the dangers in Central America and heading toward the U.S. in hopes of claiming asylum. He pointed to reports of a clash between authorities and the caravan as they moved across the Guatemalan border to Mexico. Mexico authorities said migrants attacked its agents with rocks, glass bottles, and fireworks when they broke through a gate on the Mexican end, but were pushed back, according to the Associated Press. It's unclear whether any Mexican authorities were injured, but Guatemalan officers were hurt. Trump said the U.S. military wouldn't accept bottles or stones being thrown at them. They want to throw rocks at our military fights back, the president told reporters. I told them to consider it a rifle. When they throw rocks like what they did to the Mexican military and police, I say consider it a rifle. During his White House address, Trump said he would unveil a plan to limit claims of asylum in the United States, saying there was rampant abuse of the system. But he offered no details on the proposal, which was part of a series of immigration announcements he has rolled out in the run-up to next Tuesday's election. Trump said people were taking advantage of the asylum process by making false claims of persecution in order to enter the country. He said many end up staying in the country and fail to show up for court proceedings to determine the validity of their asylum claims. Trump vowed to build tent cities to detain asylum seekers until their court hearings. We now have multiple reports that there is a third group. And it's kind of confusing. There are local outlets saying there is a third caravan group, but it seems like Reuters and Washington Post might be referring to the same group when they talk about clashes on the Mexican border. Washington Post said it was a second group, but Reuters referred to it as a third group, so I don't know if they're referring to the same thing or if they're two different circumstances. Washington Post referred to a man who died due to a head injury. Reuters reported that someone died and they named him. I don't know if this is the same person, but what we can say is we have at least one drowning and potentially two more deaths, a head injury and someone who may have died in the clashes with police, though that may be the same person, I'm not entirely sure. Donald Trump's rhetoric is extremely strong, saying they're going to consider rocks firearms. And I want to say right now that I think that rhetoric is too much. A lot of people are denying the clashes happened, but to imply that our soldiers would consider a rock a firearm, I feel is a bit too extreme. And it's being used as political ammunition by activists on the far left to show that Trump is potentially planning to shoot migrants. Now, you may not agree with that or not, but it sounds like that's what he might be suggesting. I don't know how else to take this. You can comment below and let me know what you think. But I do believe that things are getting downright crazy. Obviously, Trump is angry that more and more migrants are coming through. And with the clashes we've seen at the southern border of Mexico and the potential death, I'm not surprised he's taking a very hard approach on this and trying to put out some really strong rhetoric. Now, some people have told me they don't believe Trump would actually ever allow soldiers to fire on the Migrant Caravan. They say that he's trying to appear extremely strong to deter them from coming to this country. Where others don't know or care whether he's trying to imply something or be strong, the idea that the American soldiers would shoot on this caravan because they have rocks is alarming, to say the least. I will say I'm concerned, though. From these videos we've seen, from these stories we've seen of masked individuals trying to break through Mexico's border, if something similar happens to the U.S., I don't know how Trump will respond. But I must say that with his rhetoric, that they will treat rocks like firearms, I don't think this is going to be good for anybody. I will add, if anything happens to these migrants, even if they have rocks, it will be bad news for Republicans. In my opinion, this rhetoric from Trump is a bit too much because most people do not like violence. Most people will do everything in their power to avoid a fight. And even Fox News, Shep Smith, has said these migrant caravans, they're just people seeking asylum. So the opinion on these people from most is that they're not a violent invasion, though many people still think it is. Most people assume this is women and children and many men. Some criminals probably, but for the most part, just migrants who are trying to come to the U.S., often to find a better life. That seems to be the most logical outcome. The other group that got violent, well, I don't know what to say about that. According to Mexico, they're armed, and that's an entirely different story. The amount of troops on the southern border may or may not be too much. I'm not in the military. I don't know what they need, and I don't know what to expect. But I do know the Migrant Caravan is very far away, and the midterms are only days out. So it's possible this is political posturing. It's possible Trump is trying to sound very strong to his base. But whether or not anything comes of this, who knows? Often the news cycle kind of dissipates after major events. After the Kavanaugh hearing, no one's really talking about the accusations against Kavanaugh. And I have to wonder, if they're really concerned that Kavanaugh is an abuser, why did they stop talking about it? And I bring this up because what might end up happening with the troops on the southern border is that the Migrant Caravan may dissipate, may never actually make it, or it might make it, but as soon as the midterms are over, the media will jump to focus on something else entirely. So I guess we'll see what happens. You can follow me on Twitter at Timcast, comment below, let me know what you think, we'll keep the conversation going. Obviously, my opinion is rather negative on Trump saying he would treat rocks like firearms. We need to be really careful about this rhetoric. The reason is, even if you think Trump is only trying to sound strong, there are going to be a lot of people who hear this and assume he's saying it truthfully and deliberately, that they might actually open fire on people throwing rocks. Even if Trump has no intention of doing so, other people in the future might take what he says as precedent and think, yes, you can do this, and that's what people have done in the past. And I think we have to be very careful about the line we're walking. But again, comment below and let me know what you think. By all means, disagree with me, agree with me. Let's have a conversation about it, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens if/when this group makes it to the US. I've got new videos every day at 4 p.m. on this channel, and more videos coming up on my second channel, youtube.com/TimCastNews, starting at 6 p.m. Again, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all next time.